actually was indeed the best picture of the year, and it deserved, I think, everything that it did get.
Talking
And I
about
think that, like, going back to our previous conversation about
Parasite and
the way that
Asian films.
Asia is represented in cinema, it was really nice and so refreshing to
Parasite
see someone
and
just make something that feels so
Dead Pigs,
true
which
to
I
the
happen
way that
to see,
contemporary
understand,
Korea is, but at the same time it's
even
so deeply
experience.
universal. I mean, everyone is facing a wealth divide all
As
around
well
the world, and it's only getting exacerbated by a lot of the trends that we're seeing. America's very, very bad in terms of that. And I think I try to do the same thing with Dead Pigs, which is take a very contemporary look at China through a sort of social commentary bend. I think, again, Bong Joon-ho feels probably a similar responsibility as I do in terms of that journalistic integrity, or making films that are about something or speak to something or highlight something, then be able to do that in a very specific world that people in the West haven't necessarily seen, but are still deeply relatable. And for me, what's been really interesting about Dead Pigs is, I made it in 2017 at this point. It premiered in 2018. I went on to make Birds of Prey, and now it's finally getting its wide release. But as it does, it just feels like so many of the trends that I was trying to explore about China in Dead Pigs is deeply, deeply resonant, and more so in the last few years as we're made more aware of it in America.
Well, as you talk about this journey of the film, I think it's fair I think people would be very curious to know, what were the obstacles that you were up against? Why did it take 3-4 years for this movie to reach the public?
Obstacles.
I think partially because it was foreign language. It was also my first film, and so I think no one's holding anyone's gun to anyone's head saying you must distribute Kathy Yan's first feature. So we ran up against a lot of that. I think the foreign language element was a huge thing, and it was tough to define as a film. It kind of does hit a lot of different genres. Is it a comedy? Is it dramedy? Is it a family film? Like, what exactly is it? And because it didn't really fit neatly into a box, it also, I think, deliberately on my part, I wanted to feel, I wanted to have the feeling of a contemporary American indie, or like it was very much an homage to Robert Altman and early Paul Thomas Anderson, but then of course it was set in this foreign world, and so I think it was just difficult to define and difficult to put in a box. And certainly the success of Parasite has helped that, I think.
Yeah, I bet. On a personal note, and I know I have a lot of friends and people I know who have experienced the same thing. This pandemic, if it has done one thing, I feel like, at least my wife and I, watching tons of non-English movies, tons of subtitled stuff. In fact, sometimes I just enjoy watching stuff in English and subtitles just to soak in the words. I have an interest in writing myself, so just to read the dialogue. I don't know. I think it's a great time for foreign language films.
I yeah.
I hope so, and I think that we're only going to get more global, and there's so many interesting filmmakers and storytellers that, like me, don't really identify with one culture and are westernized to a certain extent, but also still have one foot in, this other culture, or 3 cultures, or 4 cultures, or whatnot. And that's not going away. I mean, we're just mingling so much more. And so I think these types of stories that are much more global and, I guess, difficult to define continue to come about. I think Dead Pigs was maybe a little early on the early side of that, but you're starting to see that, and you're starting to see that infiltrate
70 million
cinema, and certainly even American cinema, because that's been happening around the world outside of the U.S. But I think for Americans to take it seriously, it took a little bit longer. But that is what I'm really interested in terms of how do we redefine what American cinema is, and a lot of that is going to be from voices that have never been allowed to speak up before.
No, I feel excited about what's to come. My final question for you, Kathy, you have this resume that reads pretty uniquely. 2 films, one an indie film, one a major blockbuster. How do you? What are your hopes on how you'll build on those 2
next one
pretty different experiences going forward?
For me,
about something that hits home.
I'm still drawing on my journalism background. A lot of it is about stories that I
As well.
feel extremely relevant or have a distinct point of view or speak to the world that we're in now. Not necessarily like documentary or straightforward.
The word I'm in now is
much like Parasite. It's
their
like,
hands
or
religion.
Dead Pigs. They can still be entertaining. They can still be genre. They can still move at a good clip. They can still be fun and terrifying and all of those things that you expect from an entertaining movie or show. But I think it should, and certainly the stories that I'm focused on have these other layers because I think through the pandemic we've also hopefully all become more responsible citizens of the world too, and more aware of what's out there and what can be changed for the better.
Well, Kathy, I will say that it may have taken 4 years, but I'm glad it's reached wider audiences than just those Sundance audiences in 2018 because Dead Pigs, it's supremely enjoyable, and I'm glad it's getting to see the light of day, and we're excited to see whatever you work on next.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
That was my conversation with filmmaker Kathy Yan. We were talking about her debut film from 2018, Dead Pigs, which you can watch on iTunes as of this Friday.
As a WNYC listener, you have the means to leave an inspired and lasting gift to our community that ensures the news and information programming you value will be there for generations to come. Find out how to make an investment in WNYC's future through your will or other estate plan. To speak with someone about legacy giving, call us at 646-829-4587 or email legacygiving@wnyc.org.
Legacy giving. Well.
WNYC is supported by the Visiting Nurse Service of New York. VNSNY
Next one lies down there. It's about a man from Georgia who was trying to get white man killed. I mean, he was a killer, by the way. That is he shot. He was the shooter in Georgia. Not here, but other person who also talks about.
You are listening to Q on CBC Radio 1 in Canada, across North America on Sirius XM 169 and PRX. I'm Ali Hassan, in for Tom Power. Well, summer is around the corner. If you are like me, you might be thinking about stocking up on a pile of good books to read. To add to that pile you already have to read. Luckily, J.L. Richardson is here to help. She drops by Q to talk about books. She is an author and the executive director of Fold, the Festival of Literary Diversity. There are a few things J.L. looks for in a good summer read, and she's here with her latest pick, which she says checks off all the boxes. Hi, J.L.
Hi.
All right, so tell me, first of all, before we get into this book, what defines a good summer read?
Hi.
Since I've been doing this column, I think about this a lot. Every time I get to sort of what I call like the last book of the summer, I think about what I'm looking for and what I want to give people. And I think one of the important things is a story for the summer that's really compelling
for the
plot,
summer is
that's easy
here.
to follow. I think that's a really important part of vacation, being able to pick a book up, put it down, pick it up, and still know where you are. But also something that you just can't wait to get back to. I think that's also really critical. And then another part, I think, of a summer read that maybe is different from the rest of the year for me is something you want to share. Like you want to talk about either as you're reading it and definitely when you're finished. And because of that, it also has to be something that you can share with a wide
Because I saw this lady today, the Indian one, who had me twice come to a place, and then we walked around,
So that's kind of what I've narrowed down as my criteria for a summer.
Then it was
Does
nothing
the book also have
happened.
to be large, so if you pass out in the sun,
Check
your
me
entire
out.
face
It's
doesn't
pretty
sunburn,
good.
just part of it does? Is that...
Yes, that's well, I mean, this one qualifies on a
She was.
All right, so tell us about this book that you're going to talk about this week.
I wasn't completely sure what she
is
wanted.
The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bully.
Also,
And it's technically a YA novel, although
I was not able to keep up
and
with
it's
her
a mystery thriller
taste.
set on a Native American reserve, specifically in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and I loved it. The main character, she's 18 years old. Her name's Donis Fontaine Firekeeper, and she's actually half Ojibwe, half white. So Fontaine is her white family, Firekeeper is her Ojibwe family, and she's returned
Anyway,
to her
I saw her
community
with
after
another
a year away
guy,
of
a
college.
white
And
guy
so
with a
there's sort of these,
dog,
like,
by the way,
mysteries around not so much why she's
slightly
back, but
smaller,
like, is she going to go back, and what's sort of
rather
happening at this
fat.
particular stage in her life. Her uncle died recently. Her grandma's sick. So there's all these family and personal
Definitely a
things going
guy
on that I
from the
think make it
city,
really
not on a
interesting.
bike. I
So
don't know.
that's the compelling part you talked about, right? That it's a mystery.
Like
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's
a
this mystery over
typical
top of it too,
Manhattan
right?
life, I guess.
There's a crime that happens, and that's sort of key.
It's hard to believe,
There's
but
also
almost
this
around
young
the time I
man,
expected
Jamie,
her to
who's
come.
arrived at the start of the novel. He's new to town.
Precisely where I
He's joining
thought
the
she
hockey
might
team, and
walk
she's sort of been
by.
assigned to be his ambassador to sort of show him
Interesting.
around. So there's all these like things that you can't stop sort
Amazing.
of reading and looking forward to. And
She
I think
bounced
the crime
around
part that
just
you
like
asked about Ali is really interesting because
just like with
I don't know
me.
about you, I grew up watching, reading a lot of crime
And
television. I was a big Jessica Fletcher fan.
it's kind of
For her, she
interesting.
wrote. And my sister was
And
big
shut
into
up a guy with a
Nancy Drew.
huge dog.
Yeah, and I felt like that was part of this
You know what I mean?
book. There was
For
sort of
sure.
that feeling of a
Living
mystery in a town that you really
nice
want to see
down there.
solved. And Donis has to play this kind of important role
Much,
in what
for sure, a
happens, what
great job.
evolves, where things
For
go.
sure. After the wife not here.
I think the grandmother
It's a
did
huge
it, to be
dog.
quite
That's
honest
the
with you.
thing.
I have never
Huge
once in
dog.
my life predicted, and I was huge. Hardy
Most
Boys and Nancy
likely
Drew, those are my
also
roots,
working
and of
out of a
course,
condo.
Judy Blume, but that's a different type of book. But I
Whatever.
never once predicted accurately
Place.
who done it. But what made this book such a page turner in the end?
Well, I think that this
I
idea
always wondered
of
why
when a
can I
crime
not be a guy
happens, I
like
think
that?
you're always sort of looking to see it resolved, how it's going to resolve. I was always the person who
Why
wanted to predict who it was, but I also was interested in
am I only
the
surrounded by
process.
people like that?
Who do we suspect along the way? What happens when those suspicions are false? And there's a lot of that. Donis does
Now
this
I even
list
find
where
them
she
to
checks
life
in and she's
of
like,
a guy
okay,
like
I know
that.
this. What do I need to do now? And what was
It's
really
really
cool
disgusting.
in the book is there's a lot of science, mentions of science, and her references to the use of science mixed with her indigenous traditions. And so there's a
Indigenous
lot of sort of
traditions.
learning along the way that becomes also an interesting part of the story where you're not just obsessed with the crime, you're also really interested in the
Oh,
space that she's in
crime.
and the community that she's from.
So when you talked earlier about
Crime
a good
sounds
summer read is something you can
Sex
share and
sounds,
tell
crime
others about.
sounds.
Is that part of what you're talking about? The stuff that you would learn, particularly in this indigenous context?
Asking
Yeah, I
about
think that Donis
this
makes her a
crime
really
particularly,
interesting
I don't want to
character
have
because
any crime.
she's mixed race, and so she's sort of trying to figure out that part of her. And I think a lot of people can identify with that, regardless of where you're from or what community you're from. But I also, for me, it's Indigenous Heritage Month, and it's Indigenous Peoples Day on June 21st. And I was really touched by something I saw recently, which sort of implied that when it comes to Indigenous issues, we tend to sort of focus for a moment and then turn away. And I love the idea of spending time in the summer reading this, sharing this with other people, talking about the things that you understand and don't understand. There's some really interesting discussions around what it means to be Indigenous and what it means to find home and family that I think are really unique in some ways to the Indigenous community, and that also apply to communities, that we're from. Like, for me, from the Black community,
What is
I think there's a lot of
Indigenous?
things that we need to be
Black
thinking
community.
about and speaking up about, and this book gets a variety of people on
By community.
the same page about some really complicated
What's
topics.
this person?
Sure, and you mentioned
Never
earlier it's a YA novel, which I
went
think
out
some
to
people
try
might be,
get white man.
might be hesitant. I'm actually,
Now the question
speaking
is,
of Indigenous authors,
immigrant
The
white
Marrow
man
Thieves,
or
one of the first
white man with the dog?
YA
I can
novels I
tell
read,
you
and
for
I just
sure.
loved it. The Hate You Give. Also, YA is
Oh,
like,
The Hate You
I
Give.
guess I'm a YA at heart, but somebody who may not be, who might
Anyway,
hesitate, what
look
can you say
at
to them
this.
to get them over that hurdle?
Anyhow,
Yeah, I think a lot of people hesitate with
I stop
YA
now.
either because they think the language
because
is
I want to work a little bit,
less
okay?
cryptic. There's fewer things to sort of decipher. The author's more often going
You
to
get
tell
the
you
point.
how the character's feeling,